thing to come. Hey guys, welcome to another Visionary Male Leaders Live. I'm Dimitri Wakuf, a leadership coach and one of the co-authors in this amazing book, which is a bestseller in five different countries on 3 different continents. We're so proud of it, and that's why we were having this live, so we can give you a little bit more regarding the book and our chapters. So I'm here together with Sarah Bellorini, the heart and the leader of the project, and one of my co-authors, Leon Aarts.
Hi.
Hi, Leon. And what we're going to talk about today is again leadership, and also we're going to focus on the chapter which this amazing person here wrote, which is how to go from ego to compassion and community. So excited to talk about this and for him to give the wisdom and the insights he has when it comes to leadership and compassion. So I'm going to give the word to Sarah to introduce how they met with Leon and actually what made her, why she decided to ask him to be part of this project in this book. Hey, Sarah.
Thanks, Dimi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and hello to Leon. Thank you so much for being with us, Leon. And I think Leon and I met over a decade ago when I first came to London. So it's probably, 13, 14 years ago. And for me, Leon has always been very, very, very visionary. You know, you've always been up to something in the world. And for me, visionary leadership is very much about being an integrated human. It's bringing together these parts of ourselves, these different energies in ourselves, our inherent kind of masculine and feminine energies or traits, and bringing these into the world to do really, really good work. And it's in an integrated way. And for me, Leon has really embodied this whole idea of creating businesses, organizations, specifically 3 charities, actually. From this space, he's created something that's bigger than himself. And that, for me, is the difference between a toxic or an unconscious or a non-visionary leader, somebody who's really kind of ego-focused, focused on it's all about them. And Leon really embodies and has created charities that are all about the other and the thing that's bigger than him. He's also been a TEDx speaker, and he's the author of, I think, 4 books, as well as being in our book. So why wouldn't I invite him? So Leon, thank you so much for your contribution to our book. And it's really awesome to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for inviting me. And Dimi, thank you for hosting me. It's kind of humbling to hear that, and reflecting back on your own journey, of course.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And Leon, share with us, what was your motivation to be part of the book?
Well, Sarah rang me a few months ago and told me that she was going to publish this book and was looking for authors to be in it, and she asked me to contribute as well. She had been following what I had been doing since the beginning of COVID, really. I started a charity, which I'm sure we come on to later. So she'd been following that kind of from the sidelines as I was posting on social media about it. But also, like she said, she knows my journey for the last 13 years or so. And that was when I started, we met, we were both part of a group of social entrepreneur, a global group where there was the most amazing people, member of it, people from all over the world. I still have, unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore, but I still have friends from that time. Some, people who really inspired me and were doing good, and also some very successful business people. So you learned, just by having conversations and people, because you were part of the same group, you could ring up. And my motivation to be part of this book is that, slowly as you get older, you start to realize that you are, because sometimes you're so into your own story that you don't always see how it, like a butterfly never sees the beauty of its own wings. For our own lives, that's exactly the same thing. So sometimes, I was stuck in my own struggles while other people said, well, but you're doing this and that. And as you get older and things happen, slowly things start to unfold, and you realize, there's a few things which are worth sharing. So, and when Sarah rang me a few months ago, I also had a conversation about 2 months before that with another friend in Ireland, and she said to me, Leon, you need to share the story about what you've done during COVID and how it was a charity, but of course charity is business as well. You still have to make enough money to pay all the bills. There's no difference. Of course, you don't sell anything in our case, so we have funders and donors, and but it's basically the same thing. And I have a business background before I started in charity. So she said, you need to share that. And I'd been thinking about that. And then Sarah, contacted me. So that was my motivation to share that story, because I truly believe that anyone can do what I've done. We all have the capacity to do amazing things. It's in each and every one of us. And my motivation is a long answer to your question, but it's to inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So inspirational, your story, man. Yes,
and to tell your story, I think it's really amazing that you had this person say to you a couple of weeks before I rang you up, Leon, you have to tell your story. And for me, that's the beautiful thing about having a vision, isn't it? Because you hold that space, and then the magic happens. And that's what your article, your chapter in this book is all about. And I know that you've had that philosophy for a long time, for many years.
Share your story with us. Share who you are, Leon.
So so born in the Netherlands. That's the accent you might hear. I've been living in London now for something like 23 years. In a few I've been away for a little bit as well, but I came here the first time in 89 when I was young. And so I was always struggling to find myself, always trying to prove myself, because as a man, as a boy, when I was younger, you think you have to prove yourself. And I started doing that. And then that brought me on the path of becoming a chef, kind of by coincidence. Of course, I believe there is no such thing, but, I thought that at the time. And my whole professional life has been in and around food, first as a fine dining chef in the 90s in the Netherlands, and I became very successful. But I was always trying to prove myself, so it was never good enough. And then I had a fine dining restaurant, and we sold that. And then a few years later, in 2001, I came to England I wanted to prove that I could be a good businessman, and I had an idea to start a business here. So then you just do that, We sort of sold up in Amsterdam and came to London, And so I started a business in order to try to prove myself. And after 6-7 years in that business, I was actually quite unhappy on the inside. I wouldn't say if you would have met me then, you would have said, "Oh, Leon, why are you so unhappy?" Because the business was successful, but I felt it took me 600% to keep it going. And I knew that was wrong. So deep down inside, but you think I'm responsible for all my staff and my customers, and the people were my suppliers, because they had people working for the products for us. And anyway, one day I had a big breakthrough experience in Bali, as you do, and I came home and I decided to give up my business. I realized this is not right. You're trying to prove yourself, and that's what I realized there, because something happened. I never thought of that before. Of course, life was already coming to the surface. And I came home and I said to my wife, "We're going to stop with the business." And she understood, and she said yes. And about 2 months later, we closed the business. We didn't sell it. We closed it. And we were at a very successful business with a few million turnover, all the top London restaurants as customers. Wow. And I always say, life is a journey. It's not one decision. But when people ask me, I always say that was the best decision in my life. And I lost a lot of money, but I could be myself again. So that's now 14 years ago. And then I started on that journey, and I really was looking, who am I? Why am I here? And that became the journey. And out of that came then the charity work I done, and the books I wrote. And there's been challenges in those 14 years, definitely, but there's also been amazing stories and amazing projects which came out of there. So that's very quickly who I am. And since that moment, I started a few charities. So I've done some public speaking, wrote some books, did some mentoring. But what I'm really known for is those 3 charities I started in the last 10 years.
So what kind of charities?
Yeah, with food, of course. So the first one was I had this innovative idea to raise funds. This was 2009 to raise funds for children in developing countries. So you would give them a meal, but you give the meal in a school. So they would go to school to get a meal. The benefit was education. And I thought, imagine that every time when you buy a meal for yourself, you pay $25 extra. And for that money, a child gets a meal in a school. The schools are there, the kitchens are there. I mean, we already go to restaurants because I had worked in the wholesale business, but also in the restaurant industry. I knew how it worked. And that became very successful. Now that idea is not new, but it was like 12 years ago. And now, luckily, we do that kind of thing in many, many ways, which is great because it's so successful. Let's say the 3 of us go for dinner tonight and we pay £20 a head, which here in the UK is not that much anymore. And we would pay 15 pence, so $25 extra. And for that, so we would just by paying $75 extra, 3 children would get a meal. So we eat, they eat. That was our concept. So I did that for like 5 years. And in 2015, I was asked by a friend to start a kitchen in the jungle, which is was the refugee camp in Calais on the border with England, that was the summer 2015 when we saw all the refugees on the Greek Isles and no one knew where they came from. And I thought, I got a few weeks time. I want to help. I'm going to help. And I thought in a few weeks, this is over because then our government's got their act together. How difficult can it be? And of course, as we know, that never happened, but that's a different story. And I went there and we were cooking and we thought we were going to do 200 meals a day. And within a week, we were doing 1,200 to get, breakfast, lunch and dinner together. And that was all we could do from, 3 burners literally on grass, 3 very big burners. And I walked around there and I thought, I want to feed everyone. The camp was, when I got there, about 4,000 to 5,000 people. It grew with 200 every day. It was on the local tip. So it was disgusting. And so it even makes me emotional now thinking about it. But so the camp grew very quickly. Desperate people who needed help. The police was on the outside because the camp was deemed illegal because England didn't want the refugees. France didn't want it. They said they don't belong here. And so we cooked and there was a lot of hunger. And one day I walked around and I thought, I'm not here to cook. Everyone can cook, but I want to feed everyone. How do I do that? And well, to be honest, I heard this voice saying to me, I wasn't by myself, but I heard this, just start doing it. Everything you need will be there to help you. And that happened. And 2 months later, we were feeding all the 10,000 people by then in the camps. And we were sending a lorry full of food from England to France every week. And that was funded by people like us for a small amount through Facebook. Basically, when I posted something and then someone else posted and someone else posted, it was amazing. And and then before COVID, so I did that for almost a year and then the camp got demolished and I needed to earn some income again. And I always lived in London, but I came back and thought, okay, what I'm going to do next? And I was, doing some mentoring and some consulting, but not really felt that very fulfilling anymore, to be honest to you. And then COVID came, and a few days before the first lockdown here in the UK, and I don't know if you remember, but England locked down very, very late because we thought here, not what can happen to us? We are mighty England. And so I put on Facebook a post saying, who's going to help? People are going to be hungry. I could see that with my experience that many people, even in a town like London, live from paycheck to paycheck. People were already being laid off, so they had big problems. Many people who live here don't earn a lot, and they send most of their money home to their families. So, and there is a lot of food insecurity anyway. So I said, who has a kitchen? We're going to cook. We're going to cook thousands of meals a day. I thought it was going to be simple. All these chefs are going to be at home. All these kitchens are going to be closed. How difficult can it be? So now the only thing I thought was we're going to feed thousands of people. And all of us then thought this is over in 2-3 months anyway. And then we go back to how it used to be. And that got, the speed of, we talk about when you're in flow and when you're connected, that things go at the speed of light. And honestly, that happened. So, yeah, that's basic. Very quickly, and I'm sure you have some questions around this, but that's what I've done. Yeah.
Hello, yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, I love your story, Leon. And just to say that I think it was 250,000 meals or people that you fed in the first 3 months.
And by 250,000 meals in the first 3 months.
Yeah. So I mean, that's quite a thing.
Absolutely.
I had an idea, and then we did that. And that was out of Wembley Stadium kitchen.
Yeah, after 6 weeks, we moved into Wembley Stadium. But to answer that point, what's really important is that you set yourself a vision, and you never ever worry about how we're going to do it. How is the last thing. So, and you never ever waver from that vision. And I learned that in life. And that's what I did. And, when some people questioned me, oh, Leon, it's never going to happen. And why do you want to, why? I could always answer, that's my thing, why? But how are we going to do it? I didn't even worry about that. Like when you do a project and there is like 10 steps, you have to know step 7, 6, 7, 8 and all that. But we don't have to start worry about them yet if step 1 and 2 and 3 are not even completed. You do it things step by step, and you still think of the big picture. And I never agree when people say we have plan A, B, and C. No. Plan A is, for me, that was feed tens and tens of thousands of people. And there is no plan B. You might change a little bit how you get there, but you never, ever change, the plan.
Yeah.
Such powerful advice, and just wisdom. And what I love in your story, Leon, is that you really kind of discuss the different qualities or energies or traits that you brought to that process. And as we've kind of, we have on the front of the book, that it is about identifying and integrating masculine and feminine leadership traits. And you really kind of explain that so beautifully in your chapter. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe speak to that a little bit with regards to vision, because the world needs more visionaries. And as you say, we all have that part of us, we have that in us. But we can get stuck in this, what I call the toxic masculine, and it's not gender specific, women and men have this energy. And so, just over to you to kind of unpack that a little bit for people that are listening.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question, of course. And I know, so for me, it's all about balance. It's like yin and yang. We all have masculine and feminine energies, and this is not about men or women. And you have to bring them into balance. And, when you have a vision and, I like to think in big things. That doesn't mean big things are more important than smaller things. Don't get me wrong. Someone who has a small cafe on the corner from where you live, and they teach people with a disability to, so they have an income for themselves and come into the community. That's nature, the universe is not about big or small things. That's like manifesting is not about big or small thing. We all can manifest big things and small things. Only our mind tells us that we can't. Because, we say things like, oh, but that will never happen to me. Well, no, it won't if you tell yourself. But so about the masculine and the feminine, when you're in flow, well, let me just take a step back. The most important is that we find that balance within ourselves, that we do the inner work. It's not just, oh, I'm reading this book and now I'm going to be, more in balance and take the masculine energy and do that right. It's about finding that balance within yourself and doing the inner work and keep doing that. And then, your limited beliefs and the voice in your head starts to fall away. And when that starts to happen, then you can step into that. And And you do, every time you do it, by the way, you get better at it. I think if I look back at my own journey, my first charity was successful, but totally different than this. And so also when you doing something for the greater good, it's not about yourself. And in the business world, the toxic masculine is all about ourselves. And that's why I named my chapter what I did, because the feminine is about community. I think about the feminine.
We lost a little bit the connection here, but that's all right.
Okay, that was it. Sorry, the screen disappeared for a second. So I remember, I know people who, these beautiful mothers, they always put themselves last. And I'm not saying that's best to put yourself last, but they always think about others. They care about others. That's what the feminine energy is about. The masculine is more the straight lines and the doing and having a vision and making it happen. But in a couple, and don't mean that in the old-fashioned way, a man and a woman are as important, and we lost that a lot in our society. So for me, it's bringing that together. And when you start with a project and you forget that it's about you and you do it for the greater good, then you will be rewarded with everything you need as well. And when we started Compassion, I learned from Kelly. There was people in Calais who wouldn't have in those days these kind of conversations that we have or write those chapters. But this guy, who was a really nice guy, but would never use words like we use, and he said to me one day, I don't know what. So this was in the middle of the camp, in the middle of this dirty tip. And he said, I don't know what it is about this place, but you need something. You think, where I'm going to find this in the middle of Calais, and you turn around and oops, it's there. So he was talking about manifestation. He was there because he wanted to help, and he was experiencing it. So this is not just for a few of us. This is possible for all of us. But if you do something for the greater good, that's where it comes from. When you read books like The Secret, which are great books, but you can't go and sit on your couch and manifest whatever you want, because there is a step before that. And everything in the universe starts with why. And that's what is very important. The why is not having a bigger bank account, for example.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Leon. I mean, definitely. One thing which I can say for sure is that it feels like you are so connected to your purpose, to feed people and to help the world be a better place. Many people talk about this, but not many people have the heart I see that you have on your connection with doing what you do. And I really have big respect for that. I just want to share that with you. And there is, I just want to read that quote because it's so beautiful. I said it to you, but I'm going to read it from your chapter, because I want to talk a little bit about that. It's very connected to what you already said, but again, the quote is at the end of the chapter is, nature doesn't grow a forest. It grows trees, plants, birds, and insects. A refined ecosystem which depends on each other. All parts communicate with each other and collaborate for the greater good. Nature creates communities. Communities choose compassion. And when we do so, every part of the community will flourish. That is so amazing, man. It's like it's like genius when I was reading it. And this is something which people need to really get into their heart and understand that. And what you did in London, it's exactly that. You created a community of people to help each other in this hard situation.
Yeah, you create.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's. Thank you for reading that quote and the sort of the saying which came to me. In England, we have a saying, and it goes, "You can't see the wood for the trees." And well, that's really that's a very masculine or toxic masculine quote, actually. And because we want to build as men bigger and more expensive and all that, and but it's not about that, And everyone, when you come into a community where people look after each other, everyone comes and loves it. And whether that's what the projects we do or other people, that it always works like that, because there is some magic is going on. not to pat myself on the back, but I'm still doing it
Why
today.
not?
I'm
Why
still
not?
running a kitchen. Today we had like 40 volunteers in the kitchen doing 3,000
Wow.
meals, and some staff. Now we have funding as sort of staff to keep it going in the long term. But there was a guy who came and visit, and I showed him around, and he was talking about. He said everyone seems to be happy, and there's a great atmosphere, and there's music playing, and people are chatting and sharing their stories, and that's what happens. Something magical happens. It's like, I can't really describe it, but something really magical happens when we take away that, I'm here to earn my living. And of course, all of us need to earn a living and pay the bills and all that. We're unfortunately not in a world without money yet, or maybe never anymore. But then there is something magic happens which you don't see in companies, or rarely anyway.
Why is this message important for visionary male leaders? That's a question which I want to ask you, because some people will say, okay, that's great, you're doing good for people, but I am a leader. I have a team. I have to make money. Why it's important for me as a leader to listen to your story and your chapter in the book?
Because if you step away as a leader, if you step out of the way, then the right, you allow then your staff or your team to step up and do their best. And I think that's how community works. Thousands of years ago, when we were living in small communities, when there was a challenge, they made some indigenous people still do it. They draw a circle in the ground, and everyone steps into that circle. But it's not just the men in that circle. It's the men, women, it's the elderly, the elders who are actually respected because of their wisdom, which they, over the years. But also the 7, 8, 9-year-old children, they also step into the circle. And everyone is as important, and they talk about whatever it is, and then they make a decision or they do a vote, but everyone has one vote. And that's so important. The American Constitution was based on the indigenous Indians, what they did. Only the men who founded America, really, they forgot one step. And the Indians in America, I don't know about now, but in those days, this is a true story, they always had a council of elder women, and when the men couldn't sort it, then they would go to the council of women, and they would give advice. And so we men can't always work everything out. Let's be really honest. More often than not, when it's just us men, when we sit in a room, we think we solve the world, but that doesn't really happen. Especially when there's beer involved. But anyway, so that's what the indigenous Indians in America used to have. And the Americans, when they founded America, the founding fathers left that out. And I think that was I don't know the reason for that, but that was a big mistake, because they sort of eliminated the feminine energy.
Yeah. Thank you, Leon, for sharing all of this. And I didn't know the story about Indians. I'm sure that that's also something to say, that people, if they do it, there is some reason for that. And I totally believe that these different perspectives are so important. Just the story. I don't know about about Abraham Lincoln, for example, that he always wanted to be surrounded with people who have different and even the opposite opinion of him, so that he can make great decisions. The same is from Warren Buffett, for example. He's having this council with people who are his rivals, and he always talks about big decisions with these people. So this is all around, I mean, in this case, it's about women and men and feminine and masculine, but this is everywhere. And that creates the beauty, and that creates the wholeness of everything, because the objective decision can come from the wholeness, not from the individual's subjective perspective. So, and that's so beautiful what you just shared with us. So just before we go, just if you can give a message, just share a message when it comes to visionary male leaders, visionary leaders in general. What do you want to share? Whatever you feel like it will be a big value for them, so they can go from this conversation with something to think about.
So when I get questions like that, I didn't have an answer before you asked it, but I always tune in quickly on what comes. And I've been speaking about this quite a bit lately to people like yourself, and so there's an old ancient Chinese saying which means be still like a mountain and flow like a river, and that when I first heard this, and I heard it through the group where Sarah was a member of as well. I to be honest, I didn't understand it. How can you be still like a mountain and flow like a river? And to be honest, that's my favorite saying, since a long time. And that, if you think about it, stillness, a mountain, when most of us love mountains. They're so calm, they don't move at all. And a rivers flows off it. Let's say there is an earthquake and the mountain goes like this. How can a river flow? And when a mountain is not still? Well, we are the mountains. We have to create that stillness within. And when we have that stillness within, so that's what I said earlier, work on yourself and keep working on yourself. And, that can be annoying, and it can be, I've had that as well. You think, come on, I've been doing this for 3 years. When is it going to happen? When am I more calm? And I thought I worked on this. Why did it come back to me? Of course, we all have that. But the calmer you become, and it will pay off, then life flow comes to you. We only have to be the opening. The universe or God or whatever you call it will give it to you. And I give you one example. So we run Compassion, my charity I started just before lockdown, for 16 months. And then we joined the Felix project, which is a larger charity, which does the same and allowed us to build a big kitchen here in East London. We used 6 kitchens in these 16 months. One of them was Wembley, but we had to leave there because they had to be open for football again after a while. So we were in one kitchen after that, and we had to leave that kitchen as well. They wanted to open for the public again. It was a big public space called Alexandra Palace in London. And then I couldn't find another kitchen. And this was literally a few days before we had to leave. And my staff said, oh, why can't we stay here? No volunteers. I had no staff at that time. He said, why can't we stay here? And what we're going to do, and are you not worried? I said, no, I'm not worried. And I knew that the answer would come. And almost 2 days before we had to move, we find a kitchen. And that was on a Wednesday. And on the Friday, we moved there. And, moving a kitchen with just 3,000 meals going concern, I tell you, I've done that like 4 times now. I don't want to do it again. That cost a lot of energy. And then I'm so grateful we got a purpose-built kitchen now. But, be still like a mountain and flow like a river.
I'm going to put that on my wall, I promise.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Leon. And just to say, if anybody wants to know how to be still like a mountain, there actually is a chapter in the book all about presence. So, you can delve into that as well.
Yes,
but Leon, I could listen to you for ages. You've got, such a rich wisdom and experience. So thank you so much for being in our book and for
thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, all I can say is there's great people in the book. So for the listeners or the viewers of this, if you have a chance, read it, because there's something in it for everyone.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the time,
Jimmy.
the wisdom, and the co-creation we created today with you. And that's just the beginning. We're going to keep the conversation going and keep the influence going.
Keep the vision alive.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening.
Ciao.
Bye.